Good morning. Welcome to another NIMS instructional video. The topic of today's video is movements. So this video is going to help you find your way around moving batches from one area to another. I've run a stock report and that has shown me that we've got a few batches here which are overdue for moving. So we're going to try and move 657, 658 just as an example in this tutorial. So first of all, we would go and look at the NIMS data recording menu, and we would obviously go to movement. So under normal circumstances, you would have printed this form, you would have gone through, and you would have recorded what you have moved from where to where, any changes in tray type, density, trays, seedlings, etc. This would then come back and you would use this form to actually capture the actual movement. Now, just a note on changes from the previous versions of NIMS. Um, the all the movements, adjustments, mergers, etc., are now recorded per batch. Okay, so instead of going to look at a specific movement when you're trying to trace the what's terms, if you ever want to know what happened to a batch, you just go and find that specific batch. So in this case now, we're going to, for instance, move 657 from the routing area through to the climatizing area. Okay, so we would go and add this movement and we would choose P657. Okay, and you will notice it's all nice and clean, so we would put in the date, and let's say it's today. We would go and select from, and this little screen will show you where this batch is located. If ever you have more than one line here, it does mean that you're sitting with a split batch, and you just have to be a little bit more careful of navigating your way through this. 99% of the time, though, you're going to move a batch together, so it will always be in one area. Generally speaking, it's always good practice to have your full batch in one area. Okay. In this case, we're going to select this. Okay, so again, in this situation, we don't have to move all 15 trays, okay? We could actually move 7, but I've found in practice you guys move the whole batch together, so in this case we would be putting in 15. Another change that has occurred in NIMS throughout all your forms, and please let me know if this is not correct, you can now actually put a number of seedlings as well. So you can select either trays or seedlings and it will adjust either figure based on the density, the tray density and the tray size. It will either adjust the seedlings if you enter the trays, or if you enter the seedlings, it will adjust the trays. Okay, and then of course we're going to select where we're going to move it to. In this case, we're going to move it to the climatizing area. You only got one sub area and a climatizing area, and away we go. Okay. And if we then go and run a report and we go and have a look at P657, this has already been filled in for us. We can go and have a look, and we can see on the batch movement report it was planted on the 15th. We moved it out of the rooting greenhouse on the 7th and into the climatizing area on the 7th. Okay. Now, again, bearing in mind what I said earlier on, let's say next week now, because it's only in the climatizing area for a week, you want to go and do another movement. Okay, so now we want to move this into another area next week. Okay, so it's going to move from the climatizing area into the holding area, for example, and we want to go and it's the same batch. So now you can see it's P657 there. Okay, and you would now add the movement next week, for instance, on the 14th. Now, if you click on here, you notice, for instance, that the batch is sitting in the climatizing area, okay, all 15 trays. So we would select that, and we would now move those 15 trays through to the holding area, and wherever in the holding area those are now being located. Okay. Right, you'll notice that this little yellow sort of inventory box will tell you now that there's no trays left in stocking area, the climatizing area anymore. Okay, and there's no trace there. So they're all sitting. And again, if we um, go and run a report for that specific batch, you can see this whole movement is recorded. It was planted there, moved out there, moved in there, moved out to the climatizing area, and moved into the holding area. Okay. Also, don't be too concerned about the add and the edit, because now with the new way we look at things, let's say, for instance, that you've forgotten that you've already created a batch before P657, the system will automatically go and look if there was a movement already created for 657 and bring you up any historic entries for that specific batch. So you needn't stress too much about adding and editing in this case. Obviously, if you want to change something, you would have to go to um, it's probably better to go to edit, okay? But it's again not a train smash. With regards to editing, it becomes very silly now, for instance, if you wanted to change this, because it'll tell you all the trays are now in the holding area. So if you did make an error or mistake in this case, it is probably just better to go and delete that whole entry and then just create it again. Let's say it was on the 15th, you moved it instead of the 14th, um, and then put in your 15 trays and to your holding area again. Sorry. Um, and away you go. And that's probably the easiest way to correct things. NIMS is very nice in the sense that it always goes and reads all your data. So there's no running totals that need to be adjusted and so on. So for that purpose, we don't have to worry too much about, if we have got three movements here and we delete the middle one and then add it and fix it. But what you have to watch at all times, okay, is that your batches are always um, in one area, because if they're not, always try and do the edits and the changes so that that does actually happen. Okay. So try and keep your batches together in one area rather than splitting them over different areas. I think that sort of covers movements. The next video we'll look at is for adjustments. Have a great day. Ciao.